Derek Williams served as a master sergeant in the U.S. Army Special Forces from 1992 to 2012. Military records confirmed his participation in 76 high-risk operations across Asia, Africa, and South America. His call sign, Shadow, stemmed from a classified 2006 operation in Kandahar Province, Afghanistan, where he dismantled a major drug trafficking network linked to Taliban financing. On December 12, 2012, at 5:45 p.m., Michelle Williams, a fourth-grade teacher at Henderson Elementary School in Chicago, was caught in crossfire at an intersection in Englewood. Members of the Sinaloa cartel engaged in a shootout with the Black Disciples gang. Michelle's Honda Civic was struck by 5 9mm rounds while stopped at a red light. She was pronounced dead at the University of Chicago Medical Center at 6:23 p.m. Derek Williams was conducting an operation in Colombia and received notification through the U.S. Embassy in Bogotá. Following his wife's death, Williams resigned from active duty to care for their daughter, Taylor Williams. They relocated from Englewood to the Hyde Park neighborhood. Using his military pension and savings, Derek established Second Chance Fitness in a converted warehouse. The facility provided free training programs for at-risk youth, continuing Michelle's legacy of community service. Taylor attended the University of Chicago Laboratory Schools and received the Michelle Anderson Memorial Scholarship for Yale University's class of 2018. Criminal intelligence reports documented the rise of a new organization called Kings of Death in Chicago's South Side. The group's leader, Marcus Coleman, no relation to Derek, was identified as a former Marine Corps staff sergeant dishonorably discharged in 2008 for conduct unbecoming. FBI files revealed that between 2009 and 2013, his organization acquired control of 23 nightclubs across Chicago's South and West Sides. These establishments served as fronts for drug distribution, weapons trafficking, and human trafficking operations. A 2014 federal investigation uncovered Marcus Coleman maintained his operation through an extensive corruption network, including 3 Chicago Police Department lieutenants and Assistant District Attorney Kevin Morrison. The Chicago Crime Commission determined that by early 2013, the Kings of Death controlled approximately 40% of prohibited substances distribution in Southside Chicago, with annual revenues exceeding $50 million. DEA reports identified connections to Mexican cartels and Eastern European arms dealers, marking the organization as a significant threat to regional security. Marcus Coleman established a sophisticated hierarchy within his organization. Ray Johnson, a former boxer with ties to underground fighting circuits, served as his primary enforcer. Michael Brown, another ex-Marine, managed the weapons trafficking operations. Christopher Thompson, previously employed by a private military contractor, oversaw security for the nightclub network. The organization maintained strict discipline through violence, with multiple homicides linked to internal disputes. Local law enforcement faced significant obstacles in building cases against the Kings of Death. The organization employed sophisticated money laundering techniques through legitimate businesses, including real estate holdings and construction companies. Multiple witnesses recanted statements or disappeared before testifying. Community members, fearing retaliation, rarely cooperated with investigations. The group's influence extended to several city officials, complicating enforcement efforts. Both the FBI and DEA maintained active investigations into the Kings of Death throughout 2012 and early 2013. However, the organization's compartmentalized structure and extensive corruption network prevented significant progress. On June 4, 2013, Taylor Williams and her classmates Abigail Smith, Rachel Cooper, and Amanda Sullivan visited Club Inferno in Chicago's Industrial District to celebrate their high school graduation. The establishment, operated by the Kings of Death organization, became the scene of a brutal crime that night. At approximately 11:30 p.m., the 4 girls inadvertently witnessed Marcus Coleman torturing local businessman Robert Parker in the club's VIP section. Parker, owner of a retail chain, had refused to sell his stores to the organization. Club security personnel identified the witnesses and apprehended all 4 girls. The subsequent investigation revealed that the girls were held captive in the club's basement for 3 hours. Medical examiner reports documented extensive trauma on all victims. Marcus Coleman, under the influence of narcotics, recorded the torture session on his personal device. The footage was later recovered during a federal raid. At 2:45 a.m. June 5, Ray Johnson and Michael Brown transported the victims to an abandoned industrial complex. A factory worker discovered the girls at 5:20 a.m. and immediately contacted emergency services. Abigail Smith, Rachel Cooper, and Amanda Sullivan were pronounced dead at the scene. Taylor Williams survived, but sustained severe injuries including spinal trauma, multiple fractures, and internal bleeding. She remained in a comatose state at the University of Chicago Medical Center. The murders of Smith, Cooper, and Sullivan represented a significant escalation in the Kings of Death's criminal activities. Prior incidents primarily involved rival gang members or individuals directly connected to their operations. Forensic analysis of the crime scene yielded substantial evidence. The basement contained DNA samples from multiple gang members. Security cameras in the surrounding area captured the vehicle used to transport the victims. Blood evidence in the VIP section corroborated the timeline of events, including Parker's murder. The Chicago Police Department assigned Detective Michael Johnson to lead the investigation. However, Internal Affairs later discovered that Johnson had received payments from the Kings of Death organization. His interference compromised initial evidence collection and witness interviews. The case was subsequently transferred to federal jurisdiction. The FBI's Violent Crimes Unit established that at least 7 club employees participated in the crimes. 2 security guards, Thomas Reed and James Wilson, were identified through fingerprint evidence. The club's manager, David Rodriguez, coordinated the cleanup operation. However, most witnesses refused to testify due to threats against their families. Robert Parker's murder was part of a larger pattern of business intimidation by the Kings of Death. The organization had acquired several properties through similar tactics, though previous victims were typically found in staged accidents or apparent suicides. The Parker case marked their first documented use of torture in a business acquisition attempt. The incident demonstrated the organization's extensive influence over local law enforcement. Despite multiple 911 calls reporting suspicious activity at Club Inferno that night, no patrol units responded to the scene. Internal investigations later revealed that dispatch records had been altered by corrupt officers. Medical examinations of the surviving victim, Taylor Williams, indicated professional torture techniques similar to those used in military interrogations. This detail led investigators to focus on Marcus Coleman's military background and his connections to private military contractors. The sophistication of the crime suggested the perpetrators had formal training in covert operations. At 4:36 a.m. on June 5, 2013, Detective Robert Anderson from the Chicago Police Department contacted Derek Williams about the incident. Upon arrival at the University of Chicago Medical Center, medical staff informed Derek of Taylor's condition: severe spinal trauma, multiple fractures, and internal hemorrhaging. The attending physician, Dr. Maria Rodriguez, provided a detailed assessment of Taylor's injuries and placed her under medically induced coma. By 6 a.m., surveillance footage showed Derek Williams accessing a storage facility in Chicago's North Side. Records from military surplus suppliers and underground arms dealers in Detroit documented substantial purchases made through various shell companies. Financial transactions revealed withdrawals from multiple offshore accounts previously dormant for 5 years. The total sum exceeded $2 million, primarily routed through banks in the Cayman Islands and Switzerland. Investigation of Williams's activities over the next 48 hours showed extensive information gathering. Former NSA analyst Michael Sullivan accessed classified databases regarding the Kings of Death organization. DEA agent John Ramirez provided detailed intelligence about the gang's drug distribution network. Multiple secure communications were traced to military contacts across the country. Williams established contact with former team members from his Special Operations Unit. The FBI later recovered evidence that Williams had compiled comprehensive intelligence on the Kings of Death organization. Documentation included detailed surveillance of gang members' routines, security protocols at their facilities, and corrupt law enforcement connections. Technical analysis revealed sophisticated mapping of the gang's properties and personnel movements. The intelligence gathering extended to financial records, revealing the full scope of the organization's money laundering operations through various legitimate businesses. Military equipment suppliers reported unusual purchases matching Williams's operational preferences from his service record. Items included a suppressed Mark 23 pistol, ceramic-bladed tactical knives, and an M24 sniper rifle. Chemical protection gear similar to what Williams used in past operations was acquired through specialized contractors. Additionally, surveillance equipment, including thermal imaging devices and signal interceptors, was purchased through European suppliers. Investigation of Williams's planning materials revealed systematic targeting of key gang members. Each potential target had extensive background information compiled, including daily routines, security details, and known associates. The intelligence gathering demonstrated military precision and comprehensive operational planning. Williams focused particularly on the gang's leadership structure and their protection protocols. Subsequent events indicated that Williams had identified 15 primary targets within the Kings of Death organization. His methodology matched techniques from his military career, focusing on systematic dismantling of command structures. The planning emphasized avoiding civilian casualties and maintaining operational security. The target list included both gang leadership and their law enforcement collaborators. Financial records showed Williams liquidated several investment accounts and transferred funds through various offshore entities. He established multiple safe houses across Chicago, using aliases from his military service. Communication logs indicated he reactivated old contact networks from his Special Forces career. Several former military operators were identified entering Chicago during this period. Military intelligence noted that Williams' preparation matched patterns from his previous operations, particularly the 2006 Kandahar mission. His approach demonstrated the same methodical intelligence gathering and detailed operational planning that characterized his most successful missions. The preparation included establishing multiple escape routes and contingency plans for each potential operation. Analysis of recovered documents showed Williams had mapped the organization's entire command structure, including corrupt law enforcement officials. His intelligence gathering focused particularly on the gang's security procedures and emergency response protocols. The planning materials indicated an intent to exploit vulnerabilities in their defensive systems. Williams's documentation included detailed profiles of each target's personal habits, psychological weaknesses, and security vulnerabilities. On June 15, 2013, Ray Butcher Johnson was located at an underground fighting venue in Chicago's West Side. 2 former Marine Corps personnel, discharged for conduct violations, accompanied him as security. The incident occurred at 22:15, during Johnson's regular Thursday attendance at the venue. The electrical failure at 22:30 disabled all lighting systems in the building, including backup generators. The power outage facilitated the elimination of Johnson's security detail. One guard was neutralized with a ceramic blade weapon, while the second received a lethal neurotoxin injection. Forensic analysis later identified the compound as a military-grade paralytic agent. Johnson sustained fatal injuries during the subsequent altercation. Despite wearing body armor, he suffered a precise knife wound between his 3rd and 4th ribs, consistent with military close-quarters combat techniques. The medical examiner's report documented defensive wounds, indicating a brief but intense struggle. The perpetrator sustained 2 broken ribs during the confrontation. Investigation of the scene revealed Johnson had been interrogated in the facility's cold storage unit. His body showed evidence of systematic torture techniques typically employed in military intelligence operations. A USB device recovered from the scene contained Johnson's recorded confession to 23 murders committed for the Kings of Death organization, along with detailed information about the gang's security protocols. On June 18, Christopher Thompson was targeted on Lakeshore Drive at 0847. His Bentley Continental was destroyed by military-grade C4 explosive. The blast radius and timing demonstrated tactical precision, avoiding civilian casualties. Analysis of the explosion pattern matched techniques used in Special Forces operations. The explosive material was traced to a military supply theft in Detroit. The systematic elimination of gang leadership continued with several precision strikes. The organization's financial officer died from poisoning at an Italian restaurant. Toxicology identified a rare synthetic compound in his Amarone wine. His assistant's drowning in a private pool was staged to appear accidental. The gang's IT specialist was eliminated with a .22 caliber weapon during an apparent robbery. These operations demonstrated sophisticated planning and execution. Each target was eliminated using different methods, complicating investigation efforts. The perpetrator showed extensive knowledge of forensic countermeasures and crime scene manipulation. The precision of the attacks suggested military training and operational experience. The methodology matched techniques from Derek Williams' military record. particularly his operations in Afghanistan and South America. The use of specialized weapons, tactical approaches, and interrogation methods aligned with Special Forces training. Each operation was executed with minimal collateral damage and maximum intelligence gathering efficiency. Federal investigators documented the systematic degradation of the Kings of Death's operational capability. The loss of key personnel disrupted their command structure and business operations. The precision of the attacks created paranoia within the organization, leading to internal conflicts and security breaches. The targeting sequence followed classical military disruption doctrine. Each elimination weakened specific aspects of the organization's operations. The financial officer's death compromised money laundering operations. The IT specialist's elimination disrupted digital security protocols. The loss of key enforcers like Johnson degraded the gang's ability to maintain territorial control. Analysis of evidence from multiple crime scenes revealed a consistent operational signature. The perpetrator demonstrated extensive knowledge of surveillance techniques, counterintelligence measures, and tactical planning. The operations showed careful target selection and precise execution timing. Following the systematic elimination of key personnel, Marcus Coleman enhanced his security measures in July 2013. He recruited 8 professional security contractors, including former Marine Corps operators. His penthouse in River Point underwent extensive fortification, including installation of ballistic doors, advanced surveillance systems, and motion detection equipment. Coleman ceased public appearances, conducting operations through his deputy, Michael Brown. Brown, a former professional boxer, managed the organization's enforcement operations. Investigation confirmed his role in supervising the torture of Taylor Williams and her classmates at Club Inferno. Despite heightened security measures, he maintained his daily routine at a Southside athletic facility. On July 12, 2013, at 23:40, Brown was targeted during his regular training session. The facility's security systems experienced a complete failure. His personal security detail was eliminated using advanced close-quarters combat techniques. Despite Brown's physical capabilities, he weighed 265 pounds and had extensive combat training. He sustained a fatal injury during the encounter. The medical examiner's report documented a precise strike to his femoral artery. The crime scene investigation revealed ritualistic elements. The names of the Club Inferno victims were carved into Brown's chest post-mortem. Digital evidence recovered at the scene contained detailed documentation of the organization's criminal activities, including Brown's videotaped confession to multiple homicides. This evidence provided federal prosecutors with substantial documentation of the Kings of Death's operations. Following Brown's elimination, law enforcement received detailed intelligence about the organization's narcotics storage facility in Chicago's Port area. A coordinated DEA raid on July 15 seized narcotics valued at $12 million. Investigation of the intelligence source revealed tactical knowledge consistent with military intelligence operations. Anonymous sources provided the Chicago Tribune with extensive documentation of corruption within law enforcement. The subsequent investigation led to the indictment of 2 police detectives and an assistant district attorney. Internal affairs investigations identified 17 law enforcement officials with connections to the organization. The systematic disruption of the Kings of Death's operations continued throughout July 2013. Multiple nightclubs lost their operating licenses following health and safety inspections. Drug distribution networks experienced significant disruption due to precise intelligence provided to law enforcement. The organization's Mexican cartel suppliers suspended operations in Chicago. Financial investigation revealed the rapid collapse of the organization's money laundering operations. Multiple shell companies were exposed through anonymous tips to federal authorities. Banking records provided to investigators documented extensive corruption networks. The organization's legitimate business fronts faced simultaneous audits by multiple regulatory agencies. Intelligence gathered during this period indicated severe internal disruption within the Kings of Death organization. Surveillance logs documented increased paranoia among remaining leadership. Multiple lower-level members attempted to negotiate with federal authorities. The organization's strict hierarchical structure began to fragment under sustained pressure. Marcus Coleman's isolation in his fortified penthouse created operational difficulties for the organization. Communication intercepts revealed growing dissension among remaining lieutenants. Several key members disappeared, presumably attempting to escape escalating violence. The organization's street-level operations deteriorated due to lack of central coordination. The final confrontation occurred at Club Inferno on August 2, 2013. Initial investigation revealed sophisticated breach of the facility's security systems. 4 professional security contractors were eliminated using advanced military close-quarters combat techniques. Marcus Coleman was cornered in the VIP section, the same location where Taylor Williams and her classmates were tortured. Over the course of 2 hours, Marcus Coleman endured systematic interrogation mirroring the exact methods used on the teenage victims. The recovered video evidence showed Coleman receiving identical injuries to those documented in Taylor Williams' medical reports. Each wound was precisely inflicted to match the trauma patterns from the June 4th attacks. Coleman provided extensive confessions detailing the organization's operations, naming corrupt officials, and describing multiple murders ordered during his leadership. The interrogation followed a methodical progression. Starting with non-lethal techniques, the torturer demonstrated intimate knowledge of the original crime by replicating specific injuries documented in the victim's autopsy reports. Coleman received matching burns, lacerations, and systematic trauma. The medical examiner's report noted the professional precision of each injury, indicating the perpetrator's extensive knowledge of human anatomy and torture methodology. The video confession recovered from the scene captured Coleman detailing the organization's entire criminal empire. He named 32 public officials involved in corruption schemes, outlined international drug trafficking routes, and provided access codes to offshore accounts containing over $40 million in criminal proceeds. The confession concluded with Coleman admitting personal responsibility for ordering 17 murders, including the attacks on Taylor Williams and her classmates. Law enforcement discovered Coleman's body displayed in a manner reflecting the original Club Inferno crimes. The scene demonstrated the perpetrator's commitment to symbolic justice. Federal investigators noted that despite the extensive torture, the techniques used ensured Coleman remained conscious and coherent throughout his confession. Taylor Williams emerged from her coma on September 15, 2013. Medical records documented exceptional recovery during rehabilitation at the University of Chicago Medical Center. Despite initial prognosis indicating permanent disability, she achieved full physical recovery through intensive therapy. In September 2014, she enrolled at Yale University, focusing on criminal psychology studies. Following the dismantling of the Kings of Death organization, Derek Williams disappeared from Chicago. Immigration records placed him in Medellin, Colombia in late 2013. DEA intelligence reported 6 high-profile eliminations of cartel leaders in the region during 2014. Each victim displayed distinctive wound patterns matching Williams' operational signature. The systematic destruction of the Kings of Death organization significantly altered Chicago's criminal landscape. A new, unwritten rule emerged in Chicago's criminal underground. Never target civilians' families. You never know who they might be connected to. The case became a cautionary tale, with criminals warning each other that crossing an unknown person's family might summon the shadow, seeking retribution. The psychological impact on Chicago's criminal elements was profound. The precision and brutality of the retaliation created lasting fear within criminal organizations. The warning about the shadow became deeply embedded in criminal folklore, with many refusing to conduct operations involving civilian family members. The message was clear. Those who harm innocent families might one day hear silent footsteps behind them, marking the arrival of lethal retribution.